Sheesh. We're here, brothers. We're going to talk about a couple of different stories here tonight. Just some stuff that has accumulated over the course of the week that probably on their own I don't want to talk about. But working these things together, I think might be a decent live stream. One of them is Jinder Mahal walking out on an indie show. That's pretty fun. Another one is Brody King's stupid comment about the immigration riots. I might do that one last. A second one is Cody Rhodes and Tiffany Stratton and company going to a rally for the U.S. Army that douchebags online, lying, gossipy weirdos from Wrestle purists decided to try to make a Trump rally. Oh, we got to talk about that too. Because these people are very, very, very low IQ. And we're going to start with Jinder Mahal, though, because I think that one's probably the most non-controversial. We're gonna boil people in water. We're gonna drag them deep. We're gonna start with this one, and then we're gonna drag them into crazy right-wing politics. How about that? No, I'm kidding. All right. So it first came across my knowledge from some of the deathmatch wrestling fans that Jinder Mahal was at a wrestling show over the weekend, and he walked out. He left. And now it's in Newsweek, so it worked. Whatever they were trying to do, if it was a work, it worked. So it says this: a mid-match walkout by former WWE champion Raj Desi, formerly known as Jinder Mahal, at an independent event has been the subject of conflicting reports, with the latest suggesting the entire incident was a planned storyline. Desi has been active on the independent scene since his WWE release, including a run in AAA. This recent appearance at Battleground Championship Wrestling event in May, however, caused significant confusion. In a match against deathmatch veteran Masada, in all caps, by the way, Desi walked out mid-bout, resulting in a count-out loss and reportedly leaving the venue altogether. The promoter initially claimed the walkout was due to issues with hotel bookings. The story gained more attention after Masada claimed on social media that Desi had arrived with a list of rules of what could and could not be done in the match. This painted a picture of a legitimate backstage dispute between the two performers. According to Fightful, the entire situation may have been a planned angle from the start. Sources close to Desi insist that the walkout was a complete work orchestrated by the BCW promoter to generate buzz for the promotion. Okie dokie. It says this news reframes the incident from a backstage issue into a deliberate attempt to blur the lines between reality and storyline. Okay. And it says, regardless of the reason, Desi is not booked for any future dates with the promotion. So I guess it didn't quite work out that it was a storyline. Huh. How is it a storyline if there's no payoff? Does that make sense to you? Does it make sense to do a storyline with no payoff? So let's go to Masada's comment because I just happen to have it, of course. I have an overload of bookmarks and stuff in my bookmarks, and this just happened to be there. So we're going to go into, his name is Brigham Paul Doan at BCW Battleground. Giving my thoughts on this one. In 26 years, I've never had someone straight up walk out on a match. Never had another wrestler give the promotion shit the last second with rules written down on paper by some half-ass attorney wanting 3 refs, no chairs, no blood, and no skewers. No skewers, guys. Mind games work, but also backfire. I can give 2 fucks less about rules. but I'm also not some wannabe untrained wrestler that needs gimmicks to hide behind their lack of ring skills. Jinder Mahal, former WWE champion, I respect that. But like I said, this isn't New York. And even after getting the left side of my jaw dislocated, I was still down to keep going. Walking out on the match, shoving Tim down and shitting on the fans in the arena, and the all history of wrestling in that building. Now that was straight up garbage. Brother, this even reads like a work. Like this, it reads like a work. For starters, you've been wrestling for 30 years on the indies. What kind of sawed off bum are you that you've been on the indies for 30 years? I can't imagine. I can't imagine you know what the fuck you're doing. And you have been on the indies for 30 years. It's quite ridiculous, I must say. Jinder Mahal, he had the audacity to show up in with a list that says no skewers. I'm not allowed to stab him. Can you believe that? He has the temerity to not want to be stabbed. These people are stupid. What kind of stupid man is this? Like what kind of dumbass human being is this? How dumb are you? And why would Jinder Mahal be wrestling a deathmatch wrestler anyway? Why would he be doing that? Does he really need money that badly? Somebody call Terrence Howard. Somebody call Terrence Howard because this guy needs some money. He needs some money. This is tough. This is real tough. I'm just going to wrap it up as a work. I don't think there's anything real to this. It seems goofy to me that we would have to go through all this, but it's like if there's no payoff for it, then there's nothing to it. It has to be some sort of payoff. If there's no payoff, then why do the work? Why have a work at all if you're not going to be able to cash in on the work? I don't know. I don't get it. And it seems pretty lowbrow to me, my dudes. So we're going to move on to the next story. The next story, I'm going to sneak this one in here. Matt Riddle doesn't like CM Punk. This one's pretty good. There was a video of him actually saying this stuff, but I'm trying to see if I can find WWE in this guy.
I'm not surprised because WWE, the one thing they like money, and CM Punk is money, just like he was money in mixed martial arts. So you can't argue a man that's money. But
all right, I'm trying to find the video. I didn't have it in my bookmark. Sorry, but there's a video of Matt Riddle dissing CM Punk, and I want to play it. I was going to do a video on that, but I decided I'm probably going to take tomorrow off and not drop any content over the weekend. So I'm probably just going to play the audio if I can find it. Oh, I think this is it.
Fan of that guy either. That guy sucks at fighting. I'm not a big fan of that guy either. That guy sucks at fighting, and he's a bitch to work with in the back.
Really? Why?
CM Punk?
Yeah.
Because he just bellyaches and complains. This guy complains about getting multiple world title runs.
We hear that stereotyping. You say backstage, that is accurate?
That is accurate. I've heard from my boys that still work there that he is a headache. And this isn't a storyline. This is the facts. So it is what it is. I'm not.
All right. So Matt Riddle has never shared a locker room with CM Punk, but he does have friends in WWE. In fact, one of his best friends still works there. One of his best friends being Damian Priest. Now, how closely Damian Priest and CM Punk has worked, I don't think they worked that closely together. But he is one of the people that I know for a fact is still friends with Matt Riddle, because they were friends before they got to WWE, and there's no reason why they wouldn't still be friends now. And it's likely that there's some other people in WWE who don't like him, but Matt Riddle is known for coming off at the mouth and attacking people literally for no reason. Sometimes this one just came out of nowhere. I don't know what the purpose of this was. I mean, Matt Riddle just seemed like one of those guys, like, who likes to stir the pot. But also having that UFC background makes him feel like he's bulletproof in the wrestling business, where, he can say whatever he wants because, nobody else is a real fighter except him. That kind of gimmick. It's a really weird thing he's got going on here. And he probably just needs to be humbled, you know? And that's how it feels. It feels like, Matt Riddle is a guy who learned how to fight, legitimately in mixed martial arts, and then just decided, you know what? I'm not going to make it as a mixed martial artist, but I got more training in that stuff than most pro wrestlers do. So if anybody wants to give me any shit, I can kick their ass. So I'm just going in there and basically taunt people and try to goad them into making stupid mistakes and saying stupid things because they have something to lose and he doesn't. Matt Riddle is a guy who had a lot, and his last days were coming up when Vince got boosted, because Matt Riddle seems to be a Vince guy. I think Vince liked him. I think Vince saw that the kids liked him. I'm not sure that Triple H saw any benefit to Matt Riddle, but he tried. Obviously, once Vince left, they tried to make Matt Riddle a little bit more serious, but Riddle is Riddle, and he got drunk or high or whatever and ended up screwing around. I mean, this is the same guy who was accused of rape, and I don't believe that the rape thing even happened. I did videos on that, going into detail about all that stuff. But that don't mean I think Matt Riddle is like the best guy in the world. I still think he's a jack off. I don't like a guy who learns how to fight and then looks for people to pick on. I'm not saying that these guys need to be protected from him. Everybody can throw a punch, but he seems to have this sort of, I know how to fight. Nobody else knows how to fight, so I'll say what I want, and it's unprofessional, and it's garbage. And it seems like he just continuously does this. Like AJ3 says, it was Goldberg first, and he's going to retire Brock Lesnar. Now it's CM Punk. It's ridiculous, and it seems to be one-sided beefs too. Like these guys seemingly had no problem with him, and now all of a sudden he feels like he can just take shit off of them. I don't like it, and I wish there was something behind this. And I'm not going to say that he's wrong. Now, don't make no mistakes. He's right. CM Punk is an asshole. All right. And I'm pretty sure he knows people in AEW. And I'm pretty sure he still does know people in WWE. And he is not lying, let's say. He's not making shit up. This is all stuff we've heard about CM Punk before. But it's hard to take him seriously when he's never shared a locker room with him. To me, it just feel like he's gossiping, and I don't like that. He could say, "Look, I'm glad I'm not there. From what I hear, I'm glad I'm not around him." And you could say he sucks in the UFC, he can't fight, which is, everybody sees that. I mean, that was for the world to see. You said probably the Elimination Chamber and the Rumble. Were they on the same roster at the same time? I don't even remember them being on the roster at the same time, but maybe they were. I don't know. It's entirely possible. I think most people are looking at this thing and saying, like, when were they even in the company together? Because I think Riddle was gone a few months before Punk came back. But then again, there might be some overlap. But then again, we also don't know who Matt Riddle talks to, who he's friends with. So there's no way of knowing. But I think Matt Riddle is a guy who is chronically underachieving. So I really take umbrage to him criticizing anyone. This guy had talent in the UFC to a degree. I don't think he was ever going to be a world champion, but he could have been a decent UFC fighter and he fucked it up. He could have been a decent pro wrestler. Well, he is a good pro wrestler. He could have been a decent top contender for the world title. And, clearly the kids liked him and liked his persona and everything. And he had everything going for him. And he managed to fuck it up again. Now he's the main event of MLW. He should probably shut the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? Like, probably shut up. Probably not talk too much about what's going on backstage at other people's shows. Probably keep that to yourself. I mean, do we really, who ever sat down and asked what Matt Riddle thinks anyway? I mean, this is a guy who he probably is, he probably got like 6 figures, I think. But he should probably have 7 due to his charisma and personality and everything. But he fucked it up for himself. And I don't think he's a really smart guy. The M Studio says, to be honest, Matt Riddle was talented, but I never really saw him as a main eventer. I agree. I think that he was mostly. What's the word I'm looking for? I think he would have gotten to be world champion eventually because there's 2 world titles in the company. But I don't think that he would have been a regular main event guy. I think Vince liked the legitimacy because Vince occasionally likes to go to people who are legitimate in some sense. And this is one of the reasons why I think he pushed Alberto Del Rio so hard, is because Alberto Del Rio had fought in MMA, even though he got his head kicked off his shoulders by Mirko Cro Cop. And I think he wanted to have another Mexican star. But I think Matt Riddle is a guy that he messed up so many of his own opportunities. He can't criticize anyone else. He's too down bad to criticize anyone else right now. I think he needs to take a good long look at himself and his own situation and how he managed to torch his own WWE run and how he should maybe work his way back. Or, hey, how about working TNA? Oh, speaking of which, I think I'm gonna read my comments that I put on Marky D123's channel, because he put out a video complaining about the WWE TNA partnership, and I'm not gonna play the video at all. I'm just gonna read my comment because matter of fact, I haven't checked it since he put the video out, so maybe I'll read some of the replies to that if there's replies to it. But it ought to be fun anyway. Let's take a look at this. It's got 42,000 views.
Up to 10x points on trap.
It's got 42,000 views. It did pretty well. Good video. I got 12 thumbs up and no comments. All right. So I'm going to read this for you guys. Obviously, some people who are going to look at this and going to see it. But maybe if you follow his channel already, you would have seen it. WG Phil says Riddle could have been our generation's RVD. Well, he is without the accolades. That Roman Riddle match was still peak. It was very good. That's why I say I think Riddle had all the talent in the world. I think he was very talented, and I think he screwed it up. It's hard to say that, and I get it. He was one of those guys that once he fell out of favor, people started to criticize him. Like, I heard a lot about Matt Riddle as a wrestler when he was working Evolve in the Indies. I heard that he's going to make it in WWE. He's going to be a big star. And then he got accused of rape. And then all of a sudden, Matt Riddle sucks. Everything sucks. Everything he does sucks. It's the same thing they do with every wrestler now. And that's why you can't really take a lot of online wrestling fans seriously is because if a wrestler says or does or was accused of something, all of a sudden the wrestler is no good. And it's like, let's just be real, man. That's not true. Okay, you can give people compliments for the good things that they did, and if you can avoid talking about people who are really bad, you probably should. I'm not saying that you should go and try to find the bright side of Adolf Hitler. I'm sure it exists. I'm sure he loved dogs and cats and puppies, and he had a girlfriend, so he had some positive things about him. I'm not saying you should go search for those, but then when you're talking about things that are completely irrelevant to what we're discussing, Chris Benoit again is the only wrestler I think, and maybe Rock and Roll Buck Zumhoff, who fucking sucks anyway. But because he's a pedophile. But other than that, like, if you don't like a wrestler for whatever outside the ring thing that they did, I don't think that that's relevant to the discussion about whether they are a good performer or not. You know, they could be a good performer and a dickhead. They could be a good performer and wrong politically. They could be a good performer and a homophobe. You could be a great performer and a child murderer. I mean, these things are mutually exclusive. They don't necessarily have to run together. The thing is, however, you do have to keep things in perspective. And that is that Chris Benoit is a child murderer. And some people are bad people. And that's fine. But I'm not going to sit here and say that your work sucks because you're a bad person. This is a similar situation went on in the manga industry with Rurouni Kenshin and the creator. I think he got out of this having like child porn or something like that. And they canceled the series, but they keep rebooting it and making new animes and stuff. And everybody is cringing like, why should we watch this? Why should we do this? Because this guy got caught with child porn or something like that. And I was like, yeah, you're right. But it's all about whether the work is any good or not. Is Rurouni Kenshin any good? If you say yes, then I don't see any problem with you reading it. If no, then the guy being a bad person and putting out bad art is fine. You know, you're doing everything right. But I did keep my Rurouni Kenshin manga down to one volume. I have one volume of that shit because I take pedophilia really seriously, and I couldn't get it out of my head. But most other things I can ignore, and I really don't care, you know, unless somebody was injured or harmed in some way. That's like I don't really have a problem listening to R. Kelly songs. It's like did he now he can't sing anymore? 12 play sucks because R. Kelly ended up being a bad person. Guess what? You knew that while you was listening to it. Cause what was that? Was 12 play came out in 93? And he married Aaliyah around that same time, right? And everybody knew she was underage. You were still singing "Feeling on Your Booty" and remixed to Ignition, knowing that he had done things with a legally underage young lady. Don't try to act like a church lady now because all of a sudden you watched a documentary full of bullshit. Documentaries are the lowest levels of information because you can put whatever you want in there. And I forgot, somebody just said that recently, and it's true. Unfortunately, I love documentaries. But you have to go into the documentary knowing that you're only going to get one side of the story and not necessarily the full story. As long as you go in with that in mind, enjoy documentaries. I love a good documentary, personally. But Matt Riddle, professional dipshit, screwed up every opportunity he's got. MLW is a place where he can't possibly screw it up because I think if you have a heartbeat, you should be doing okay in MLW. But I'm surprised Matt Riddle hasn't gone to TNA and decided to pitch a tent there and stick around for a while. It would seem like that would be a natural place for him to land especially since they do run Las Vegas a lot, and I know that he lives in Las Vegas. So I don't know. Maybe it's hard to say, but he's the MLW World Champion now, and looking at that roster, well, it's not as bad as it was, but it's better since they got that $20 million influx. But speaking of TNA, I'm going to read my reply from Marky D123's The Worst Deal in Wrestling. He did a video where he talked about how bad the WWE TNA relationship is, and how it's making him not want to watch TNA anymore. That TNA is cupped to WWE because they are getting rid of excessive amounts of blood and they're agenting the matches more for things like contact, like people being slapped and stuff, which I'm surprised they weren't doing already. I don't think people getting. I think anytime there's going to be physicality, there should be a producer or somebody or an agent or something there to make sure things are going to work out, because it could cause all kinds of problems. But he made this video. It's like 12 minutes. It's a solid. It's 13 minutes. It's a solid video, but he clearly was in his feelings about Trick Williams winning the TNA World Title, even though he kept saying this is not about Trick Williams being the TNA champion. Like, it clearly was. If you said it more than once, it was definitely about that, right? But this is my response. I'm going to give an honest response because the Hawk deserves it. For starters, I don't really care what kind of wrestling people like or what company. But the Hawk being in his feelings about the partnership, but completely overlooking the real issue. TNA fired Scott D'Amore, and he proceeded to start his own promotion and poach talent from TNA. A simple look at his talent roster will reveal this. This has nothing to do with WWE, and it happened before the deal was even made. The company also announced pay cuts, which led to quite a few talent leaving. I didn't put this in here, but that's one of the reasons why Rhino left, is because I think he was asked to take a pay cut. So Rhino left. And I think that's one of the reasons PCO left as well. The decimated roster of TNA is supplemented with NXT talent. It's a win-win for NXT TNA. Without this partnership, TNA doesn't even have the talent to run shows. Actually watch the show and remove the NXT influence, and all you're left with is TNA dinosaurs like Moose, Cass, Eric Young, etc. TNA has to rebuild. There is no choice. It's different than when the Owl took over in 2018, because there is no AEW taking talent. And I wanted to put this in here too, because when at that time, remember when Matt Hardy and Impact got into that tussle, right? There were still plenty of wrestlers who were on the independents, guys from Ring of Honor, guys from New Japan, and they could work in TNA because the TNA at the time was still the #2 wrestling promotion in the United States. So, and TNA still had television. Like, they had BS television. I think they were on Pop or something like that. Like, it was real stupid TV, but they still had TV in the United States. So it was still the #2 promotion. And being the TNA World Champion at that time still mattered. So when guys like Austin Aries went back there, when Johnny Nitro went back there, with Pentagon won the TNA title, when Eli Drake was the champion, EC3, there were still fans watching the shows between 2015 and 2020, right? Things took a sharp turn, obviously, in 2019, because that's when AEW launched. And AEW started poaching talent. And so I put it in here. I says, but now there is a secondary promotion. And AEW and Ring of Honor is absorbing a lot of the talent from TNA, New Japan, AAA, CMLL, etc., which limits TNA's ability to recruit. So you're upset that there's NXT talent all over this show. But if you take them out of this show, who do you put in? You just have to make the matches featuring everybody else longer. Oh, okay, you're so upset that Fatal Influence got one match on the pre-show. Okay, take them off and look at the rest of the roster. Who do you got left? The same people who were there 2 or 3 years ago. Jody Thread, Rosemary, Masha Slamovich, who I love Masha Slamovich to death, and that's pretty much it. Oh, you upset about Trick Williams? Okay, look at TNA's roster and tell me who else would you rather have the world title on? Eric Young? Kazarian? Do you want this company to survive or not? You know, like one of the things about TNA is that they were able to sign a lot of the higher level indie wrestlers. They can't do that now. Those guys would rather go be jabronis in AEW. They would go rather work in Ring of Honor than work in TNA. So now TNA has to find some way of survival since their partnership with AEW broke up, and they have to figure out how to make this thing work. Now, TNA benefits greatly from WWE because of the NXT talent, but also because WWE now owns AAA, and AAA and TNA were already partners. So now they have access to more AAA talent. You know, like TNA is no longer, I think, the number 2 wrestling company in the country. And I'm not sure if I said this. I probably said it a little bit later. But I'm gonna say it now. What TNA does for their televisions, GCW can do the same number. Cause they do like 2,000 people. MLW does like the same number. Like that's how TNA has fallen. But how have they fallen really? Not really, no. Because it was never that big in the beginning. TNA never sold the tickets that AEW sold. Ever. They never sold as many tickets as AEW. So now there's a bunch of indie promotions that through the power of indie wrestling, they're, raising the stakes. GCW is running the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York. They're running the 2300 Arena. I think they had almost 3,000 people for Sabu's last match. Now, granted, for Bound for Glory last year, I think they did like 4,000 or 5,000 people. TNA did. But MLW, on a big MLW show, they'll do 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 people. There's companies out there that's catching up with TNA. TNA's big problem is the roster. I then said, to continue, TNA has to recruit younger talent from the indies. But the moment they do, WWE or AEW will come along and offer more money, which is absolutely facts. How could you deny that? How can you even disagree with it? I said, now let's move on to the banning of gestures, blood, etc. TNA stated they're looking to get on a better network. That's true. They did. They have been talking about taking them off of Access and putting them on a different network, even though the network owns. The company Anthem owns Access. They're looking to farm it out to a different place to increase the visibility of TNA. Now, to this point, the Hawkeye also at some point had suggested that TNA stop putting up whole pay-per-views and whole matches onto their website, right? Onto the YouTube channel. Like, why are you giving these matches away for free? It's like, because nobody else was. Like nobody else was doing that. TNA has 20 years of backlog. They can afford to put some stuff up for a while and then take it down. No problem. They got 22 years of material. And now everybody's doing it. Now WWE's doing it. AEW has started doing it. They even started putting up Ring of Honor matches. Now everybody is following what TNA started by putting full events up, putting full matches up. WWE used to put up clips of matches. TNA upped the ante by putting up the whole fucking pay-per-view. Now you see WWE upping up whole Nitros, whole Thunders, whole episodes. I think they put up a whole pay-per-view recently. But he was like, no, don't do that. Like, anything to get people to pay more attention to what you're doing. I think it's probably the right idea. So I continue by saying TNA stated they're looking to get on a better network. This is going to require some sacrifices. Even AEW had to modify their product for the mainstream standards. This is a part of the business. If you have a problem with TNA trying to grow, then that's a personal issue. TNA should have been more business oriented years ago. Now, this is in direct response to him saying that the TNA banning excessive amounts of blood and the throat slash gesture and certain stuff like that is because of WWE. And that WWE is forcing them to do this because they've never done it before. And it's like, okay, but why would WWE just not buy TNA? Oh, because they're going to hit with the what's this, the what they say, the what's the word I'm looking for? Shit. You know what I mean. Monopoly. They don't want to be a monopoly. Well, they're still working with TNA, right? So it's still, you can make partnerships, and you like WWE's market share isn't going to increase much if they buy TNA. The market share is not going to increase by that much. There's no point in buying TNA because there's nothing that the company has other than the library. Like there's no benefit to them buying TNA. There's nothing unique about it, right? So them buying TNA makes no sense. Them controlling TNA makes no sense. What they are suggesting and what TNA is suggesting, however, is that some of the things that they have allowed on their program has limited their reach and made people not want to do business with them. This is a harsh lesson, right? It wasn't that long ago. As a matter of fact, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. Didn't TNA get kicked off of Twitch because of Rob Van Dam's segments with his two girlfriends? Well, his girlfriend at the time and her girlfriend, and they did some kind of segment on TNA that got them kicked off Twitch. Remember when they were on Twitch? Like that was down bad days, right? So they're trying to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. You know, WWE is going to help them a little bit with, you know, a talent exchange and this sort of stuff. But ultimately, TNA has to make better business decisions. And part of that is going to be, what are some things that are holding us back? The vulgarity, the blood, stuff like that is holding us back. Okay, maybe if we cut that stuff out, we can find a mainstream place to land. And I understand where they're coming from with that. So I continue by saying TNA has been floundering for 10 years before WWE stepped up to help them. They face more competition now than they did in 2015. Even indies like GCW and MLW regularly draw well compared to TNA. TNA is not in the same league as AEW, let alone WWE. To be a TNA fan, you should already know this. They don't have the visibility, the money, the brand recognition, the platform, or the talent. It's a third-rate promotion. But TNA has legacy. It's still a televised product, which offers a lot of opportunities for young and aging talent. But this isn't going to be turned around overnight. TNA is still losing talent. Ace Austin just left. Hammerstone just left. But people are talking about the shows because NXT has been helping them. If NXT was not there, most wouldn't be watching the show at all. And this is a fact. This is a fact. Because what got people watching TNA was the Joe Hendry stuff, the crossover with Jordan Grace, you know, now the Trick Williams stuff. And Marky D actually noted, and I think he makes a good point, that the NXT audience is starting to watch TNA, and they're starting to sort of dominate that audience. So now you're getting NXT chants at a TNA show. There are some people who are NXT fans who are watching TNA, but they don't want to see the TNA guys. But this is, and I'm one of those guys, but I was saying that before the partnership, right? Like, there's a lot of people who want to watch TNA, But we don't want to watch Moose. We don't want to watch Eric Young. We don't want to see Eddie Edwards. We don't want to see these people. I'm sorry that these guys are cornerstones of TNA because they're useless. They suck. All right? They're old and washed up. They serve no purpose. We don't need them. I watch indies all the time that are filled with guys that TNA should probably put some money into. I say it every time I do an event. That every time I follow one of TNA's pay-per-views, I always rant about the roster. And then I'll say there's quite a few guys that are on the indies that if TNA actually cared, they could give them a call and say, hey, you really only got to work twice a month with us, but come in and sign a contract, work with us for 2 or 3 years. If we increase your value, AEW might come a calling, WWE might come a calling or whatever, but we can't build the show around fucking Steve Macklin, right? It's nuts. I love the lesbian segments between Masha Slamovich and Killer Kelly, but that wasn't it. It was what got them kicked off Twitch was the Rob Van Dam segment. That's when they started putting the disclaimer before episodes of TNA. And another thing that's problematic is TNA is owned by a Canadian company. It probably needs to be owned by Americans or Europeans or something. But Canadians and Europeans are kind of bland, bland and inoffensive. I need some attitude in that show. I continue by saying the NXT crossover is the big story for TNA. And this is in response to him saying that there's no big storylines coming out of the crossover. He don't understand that the crossover is the story. Everything that they essentially are doing now, and they've been doing for the last 6 months, is still fresh and new. Okay? They just switched one of the titles for the first time. They're probably going to have somebody from TNA win the NXT belts eventually, and walk around with the NXT belts. There's stuff that's going to happen. We're still in the young stage of this relationship, I think. But he's mostly upset because all of TNA's top guys go over to NXT and they lose. And none of the NXT top guys come to TNA and lose. Which I think he makes a good point there, especially when it came to the Jordynne Grace situation. Like, I think Roxanne Perez should have gone and challenged Jordynne Grace for her belt and then lost. I think that would have been better, right? But they chose not to do that. I don't know why. Especially if you want to tell everybody they're essentially equivalent titles, then that would have been better. But I didn't like the idea that Jordynne Grace went and lost to Roxanne Perez, and then she didn't really get anything except for a WWE contract out of it. I didn't like that. Everybody, of course, bitching and complaining about what happened with Joe Hendry at WrestleMania. It's like you're talking about the TNA World Champion being at WrestleMania. That alone is crazy, right? That's just crazy. So I said the NXT crossover is the big story for TNA. Without it, it's a dead brand with washed talent nobody else wants. Because it is. If you fired Eric Young, Moose, Eddie Edwards, JDC, Frankie Kazarian, where's all these guys going to go? Who's going to be clamoring to pick these guys up? Scott D'Amore? That's probably it, right? That's probably the limit. You probably get Scott D'Amore scoops all these guys up, but he doesn't run but like once every other month. I don't think he's even having a show in June. Matter of fact, I think he might have a show in June. As a matter of fact, I think Maple Leaf Pro only has once a month. I heard that they're supposed to be starting TV, though. I think they might be starting TV soon. And said, P.S. TNA dinosaurs like Eric Young, Eddie Edwards, Kazarian, and Moose are boring. Nobody would tune in just to watch them. So, obviously, more people agreed with him because that's more of a TNA-friendly channel. And you get a lot of positivity for your WWE hate. But I think that nobody really argued against my point, which is why there's no replies. There's just a lot of people saying that, he's right and all that sort of stuff, which is fine. I mean, it's his channel, so it's obviously going to be people who are going to agree with him. But he also follows NWA, which is fun because I also follow NWA. I don't do any more reviews because I can only review a certain amount of product at one time. I mean, come on. But I just watched NWA. I didn't even finish it. I had to turn it off. I couldn't watch any more of it. But I still watch NWA. And now NWA is going to be on Roku, believe it or not. And the NWA is doing things the right way. They have some talent that are not really exclusive to the NWA, but there's a system where a lot of these wrestlers will go from promotion to promotion with their NWA titles. And it seemed like big stars when they go to these promotions because they're even smaller than the NWA. So NWA has territories, like I think EC3 has one, and there's other people who have territories. And the NWA titles will go to these territories, and these guys would feel like bigger stars, even though NWA is literally beneath GCW in terms of importance. But at the same time, Tom Latimer, who is the world champion, I can't believe it or not, he actually has been world champion for the Maple Leaf Pro shows. Meanwhile, I think Tiffany Nieves still works. Is she the women? No, she's not the women's world champion. I think she's a TV champion. I'm not sure which champion she is. I'm looking at the belt right now. I think it's the TV title. The women's TV champion. I think she's still working in OVW. And Kenzie Page, who is the women's world champion, well, she seems like was a little bit more seasoned, and she'll be NXT ready. But Billy Corgan signed a deal with Roku, so you'll get to watch NWA Power on Roku. So it says the deal will see matches airing on the Roku channel in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico starting July 29th. It says the move will see NWA matches streaming for free every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's the same time NXT is on. The NWA has expanded its programming over the recent years with 10 pounds of gold as well as weekly broadcasts of NWA Power on the CW's app. I don't know if it's still on the app or not. I haven't checked. I watch NXT on CW's app sometimes, but I haven't checked to see if new episodes of NWA Power are up on there. It says it is the latest sports deal for Roku, which also airs MLB Sunday, Lead Off, NBA G League, Formula E, Pro Volleyball Federation. Oof. Such great luminaries here. And Bassmaster. Fishing. They host fishing. You said NWA is on X now. Well, okay. Yeah, you're right. But I'm saying is, because I watched it on Twitter, I know. But I'm saying is, I thought maybe they were still putting episodes on the app, on CW's app. So, okay. I'm glad to know that they're not. So, Corrigan says, when I purchased the NWA in 2017, it was understood we were inheriting the history and legacy of the more storied brand in all of combat sports. To announce today, we have now partnered with the #1 TV streaming platform in North America is indeed a moment to be proud of. I look forward to sharing new episodes of NWA Power with the incredible audience that Roku brings. We're thrilled to call the Roku channel the streaming home of the National Wrestling Alliance. As Billy, his team continue to excite audiences. For some reason, this goddamn deadline. All right, there we go. We look forward to tapping into the scale of our platform to bring this historic. God damn, these fucking ads. These ads kicking my ass. bring historic and storied promotion to millions of viewers. Added Joe Franzetta, head of sports Roku Media. And interesting. You know what's fantastic about this? I don't know how much they're getting paid. I'm pretty sure it's not a lot. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't think it's a lot. Hopefully they update their presentation. Heavens to Betsy, the NWA needs it. The NWA went into the toilet, obviously, when Dave Lagana left. He seemed to be the only person who actually, Billy Corgan was willing to listen to. Because that product has gotten schizophrenic as all hell since since Nick Aldis left. It's been extremely bad. Darren Miles says NWA should have been bigger than what it was. I mean, when NWA Power first started, my word, everybody was watching it and everybody loved it. And then, the speaking out stuff happened. And then, of course, the Cornette thing, he ended up leaving. And you ended up, Dave Lagana ended up getting ousted. And then they tried to partner with AEW for the Empower show, the first women's pay-per-view show. And then all of a sudden they had a falling out with AEW, which led to Eddie Kingston, Thunder Rosa, Ricky Starks all leaving to join AEW. And then LA Knight, who was Eli Drake, of course, left to join WWE. And it was crazy, and that killed it. But I think mostly what happened was the Dave Lagana thing. The Dave Lagana situation is probably what promptly killed NWA. And then it held some level of relevance, and then what really made things worse than ever before is when Nick Aldis left, because then it felt like all the dignity of the brand left. And then they made Tyrus the world champion, and Tyrus was on Fox News as the world champion, which of course absolutely infuriated all the left-wing wrestling fans, of which there are many, probably too many if we're being honest. And NWA was not WWE, where people mostly don't care or they kind of overlook that sort of thing. Because NWA is really small, and because Tyrus fucking blows. I mean, he was terrible. He was champion for a really long time too, which didn't help matters. He was champion for a really long time, way too long, and that killed the brand. Just a series of bad decisions really shit all over the brand. I don't expect them to get millions of views. They would have to turn that product around almost completely. It would have to be a completely different product in order for it to get turned around and make millions of views. It'll probably get tens of thousands of views. Let's look at what the last episode of NWA did on X. That's probably the best barometer of what they'll do on Roku. That's probably the best barometer of what they're going to do on Roku. So let's take a look at the last NWA show I just watched and what the views were there. I mean, it's crazy. I watch these shows and nothing sticks. Like, I don't even remember it week to week, because it's just like random people showing up. It's like random people doing random things. So NWA aired on Tuesday at 6:05, and as of right now, it has 28,800 views. So 2,800, almost 29,000 views. That's it in 2 days. I don't expect it to get more than that on Roku. You say, is Roku the Temu version of Tubi? I don't know. I don't have Roku though. But they say you don't. It's not. You don't need a login or anything like that to watch NWA on Roku. I guess you just need to download the Roku app, which I guess I'll do. I'll give it a chance. The thing is, Billy Corgan is actually trying, man. You know, like he got the CW deal, and then he made a bad decision with the cocaine, and it ended up off of CW's app, which was, God, that was such a stupid mistake. That was an unforced error, and he ended up screwing himself out of that deal. And then NXT came along and scooped up scooped up the bits. But Billy Corgan's his ability to find deals for NWA, because here it is 2 years in a row, he's found a different streaming deal for NWA. First, he found the CW deal. He was on CW before NXT was. And he found that deal, even though he fucked it up, like we just said. Now he's found the Roku deal. He's actually working. Meanwhile, Tony Khan owns Ring of Honor, has been telling people that, oh yeah, a TV deal for Ring of Honor, a streaming deal or whatever for Ring of Honor is coming. He's been saying that for 3 years. Right? He's been saying that for 3 years. Corgan is pulling Tony Khan to shame because Billy Corgan is spending his own money. You know, like Billy Corgan is spending his own money. As bad as the product is, at least he's spending his own money on it. And he's trying to get the brand out there. He's trying to hustle. Tony Khan, for some odd reason, well, look, I would think at this point, the Ring of Honor tapings are so irrelevant that you would just put them on YouTube. Like, it's literally that irrelevant that you really should just put them on YouTube. You know, like all of these streaming services exist, and Tony Khan cannot find a single home for Ring of Honor. Like, what is he expecting? Is he expecting like HBO to walk up to them and offer them a time slot? Like, even WWE, they're doing stuff with Tubi. They're putting shit everywhere, bro. They got stuff on Hulu. They got stuff on direct cable. They got shit everywhere. Tony Khan is literally only doing stuff on TNT and TBS. That's it. It's like if he was really out there trying to get it when it comes to AEW or at least Ring of Honor. So something tells me that he can't, right? If he hasn't done it, something telling me that he can't. Now, what that means is interesting. Can't he not do it because the Ring of Honor brand is so weak? Or can he not do it because there's something contractually preventing him from doing it? Is he, and this also, of course, leads to our recurring conversation about, you know, how much does Warner Brothers own of AEW, even though he claims that he's the majority owner, and you know nobody else owns more than 10% of the company. Like that really, that says a lot. So it's like 9.98% owned by somebody else, which is fine, I guess. But we could probably discuss this discuss this a little bit. But I think that this guy is just lazy. He doesn't know how to go out there and hustle. There's no good reason why Ring of Honor is not available for everybody to see. WWE's gotten their trainees where everybody can see it on Tubi. Why can't Tony Khan leverage Ring of Honor in the 20 years of Ring of Honor history to get them where people can see it? There's people now talking about Athena going back to WWE. That's the rumor. That as soon as she Soon as her contract is supposed to be coming up this year, and she's always been a Triple H girl, and then she's gonna end up going back. I don't know that to be true. I really don't. But there was a rather funny picture of Double or Nothing where Athena is watching Mercedes on TV smiling. And everybody was like, man, there's a lot of pain behind those eyes. She was there before Mercedes got there. She wrestled for the women's world title a couple of times and then was promptly tossed into Ring of Honor, where she's been the top girl forever. She's basically, and I'm not a big fan of Athena. Really not. I'm not a huge Athena fan. But it is kind of weird. When you look at the people who are featured on Dynamite, Anna Jay, Penelope Ford, Sky Blue, come on, she's better than all of them. Like, she is most definitely better than all of them. It'd have been one thing if, you got a company full of some really like if they were really doing some stuff like Thunder Rosa, or Megan Bayne was really kicking ass, and Toni Storm and Mariah May was still there, or if this Thekla girl works out or whatever. It'd have been one thing if they're kicking ass and there's just no room for her. But it's like you're featuring people who are not even in Athena's league on Dynamite. So now you have to ask, some very important questions. X9 says, do you think wrestling should be counted as TV shows or as a week-to-week circus like it was back in the day? It should be a TV show. I think we're beyond the let's just put up a collection of matches. I think we're past those days. I don't think you can get away with that anymore. I think your show should tell a story. I think it's because I think the indies are the only way you can get away with it. Like GCW has long run stories, but it's not on every show. So every show they might touch on it, but there's like no dominated storyline throughout every GCW event. MLW has regular storylines just like TNA and WWE and AEW. Some of the other wrestling promotions, they don't really do storylines unless it involves the champion, because the champion is the only person that's guaranteed to be there the next time. So, but that's usually why indies are so much different, because they hire mostly local talent, and so some indies are better than others because the local talent are better. So ain't no telling, but I definitely think that your show should have storylines. It seems kind of weird that it wouldn't have storylines. Ever since Mariah left, Tony has not tried to replace or fill the void that has been left behind. Well, yes, he is. That's why he brought in Thekla. I think that he sees her doing something else in that role. But my thing is, she should be featured on the Dynamite portion of the show and not the Collision portion. Like, I have not been able to watch a Thekla match without having to go and look it up on Collision, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to go watch Collision. I heard there was some funny business between her and Queen Aminata. I'm not going to go too much into it because I haven't seen it myself. But I saw some people that was unhappy with that performance. But there's a lot of people who are got to be frustrated with what's going on in AEW, and I would imagine perhaps Athena would be one of them, but we don't know. Unfortunately, they went through all of this thing with Thekla and Jamie Hayter, and apparently they haven't bothered going back to it. So, very unfortunate. Also, Lady Frost is still in AEW / Ring of Honor. She's been there for about 4 or 5 years. And she's a pretty talented young lady. even though I think she's older than I think. And she hasn't gotten the ball much. She hasn't been able to do much of anything. But I think it's shameful, to be honest. But I don't know what the hell they're doing. I don't know what the plan is. It doesn't seem like there's any forward motion for Ring of Honor at all since Tony Khan bought it. You know, I don't think there's any forward motion. I mean, it used to be the good match spot, like when you go there and you'll have the Briscoes versus FTR. You're like, oh shit, okay. Like he did a good job by sending Chris Jericho and guys like that to Ring of Honor when it's time to boost the pay-per-views. That's fine. But when it comes to the TV, nobody knows what the fuck is going on because they don't talk about it. And I think the only belt you see is a TV belt. And then they're wrestling nobodies or they're coming out there to lose. I mean, it's unfortunate. But you got to get that thing in front of people. X9 says, by the end of the year, if Blake Monroe and Mr. Iguana ain't holding every title in WWE, just shut down the company. The Mr. Iguana push is kind of crazy. I'm not even going to hold you up. It's excessive. There's like new Mr. Iguana content every day. Every day. Every day. They announced the main event of Triple Mania, by the way. Well, the Triple Mania Regia show, which is kind of like the pre-WrestleMania show. And it's Alberto Del Rio. So everybody who was losing their mind about Alberto not getting an opportunity, he's going to get another opportunity. He's going to wrestle in the main event of that show. How about that, y'all? It's a rematch against with him versus Vikingo. How about that? It's for the Mexican audience. WG Phil says Khan only bought Ring of Honor to appease Punk from WWE buying it. And you know what? That is absolutely true. I mean, look at what he did with the roster. Well, for starters, he did something that was extremely shady with the roster. And I don't want to compare the two because WWE is not much better. But what happened is Ring of Honor released everybody from their contracts, essentially. And then Tony Khan bought the company so that he wouldn't assume none of those contracts. So I think Ring of Honor pretty much released everybody. They released the entire roster. And then Tony Khan bought the intellectual property, the rings, the library, everything. And then he got to pick and choose which talent he was going to bring back in. So this is what led to the big exodus of Ring of Honor talent that ended up in TNA for a while. And it seemed like that was going to be a good landing spot for some of those guys. And it was a huge influx of new talent for TNA. And then he started hiring some of those guys back. You know, the Mike Bennett's and the Matt Tavens and Jonathan Gresham and some of those other guys. And you compare that to WWE when they bought Evolve, they assumed all the Evolve contracts and they started using the Evolve talent. Now, they did end up cutting 99% of them over the course of the next 3 years. I think Shotzi was one of the last ones that was still hanging around. Now, Austin Theory might be one of the last ones still hanging around. But they assumed all of those contracts. They brought all of those people in and gave them a chance. Oh no, I forgot. Andre Chase, he was on that roster too. So there was some people. Oh, fuck it. JC Jane was on that roster too. She was brought in, I think, maybe just before the Evolve purchase, either right after or right before, one or the other. But she came in around that same time. It was her, Shotzi, Austin Theory, Andre Chase. There was a couple of other people. Anthony Henry, who ended up getting fired. Kurt Stallion, who ended up getting fired. Josh Briggs is still there too. He came from the Evolve deal. But when you look at Ring of Honor, Tony Khan let everybody get released first and then bought the company. And now he's just sitting on it. He doesn't know what to do with it. He doesn't care whether it makes money or not. So, I mean, it's hard to say. And I don't even know what the attendance is for the shows to Ring of Honor. Is it like 500, 300, 200? Nobody knows. Nobody asked any questions about, the TV tapings or what's happening on those shows. Nobody gives a fuck about those shows at all. I think they did a Lucha Libre show recently. Maybe if I can find it, I'll watch it. Because I like Lucha Libre, even though I'm not really a big AAA guy. I mean not AAA, but CMLL guy. I know they're doing a partnership with those people, and maybe I'll watch that. All right, let's move on because I want to get out of here. So I'm already over my time limit. So dipshit AO from Russell Purist, one of the gossipy weirdos that hang around with that other guy. He puts on Twitter, WWE superstars Cody Rhodes, Tiffany Stratton, and the Street Profits took stage at a Trump rally held to celebrate 250 years of the U.S. Army. As the crowd waited for Trump's arrival after Driscoll's remarks, WWE, Angelo Dawkins, Montez Ford, Cody Rhodes, and Tiffany Stratton took to the stage to sing Happy Birthday to the Army. This, of course, led to a Smart Tears style eruption of anger as people were talking about how WWE is a MAGA company and all this sort of stuff. And then he responds to people telling him it wasn't a Trump rally. This was to celebrate the Army. He says, Trump literally told the audience that he drew the crowd and Biden wouldn't be able to which they applauded. This is a record crowd, he said. You never had a crowd this big. That's an honor. You think this crowd would have shown up for Biden? I don't think so. This does not make it a Trump rally. It's not a Trump rally. It was literally for the Army. You can look up this same situation, this same damn story, and it won't mention the wrestlers at all. It won't mention anybody else that was there. And obviously, if Trump shows up, he's going to talk about himself because that's what Trump do. Okay? Trump makes everything about himself. Maybe Khan should have bought Wrestling Society X. It's that Montez served in the military so they can pipe it. Yeah, he was in the Marine Corps. That was one of the first things people said too. It's like Montez, for starters, it's an Army rally. That's the first thing. Second is Montez Ford in the Marine Corps. So he actually served. He's a veteran. Why wouldn't he be there? But everybody jumped up and down on Cody for being a right-wing MAGA, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, this got picked up as right-wing blogger, blah, blah, blah. And then after a few hours, everybody's favorite dweeb, Sean Ross Sapp, showed up and said, wait, guys, you need to calm down. This was just an Army rally that Trump showed up at. It wasn't that big. It's like, why was this even a problem? Like, this is so stupid. It's so stupid that, it's frustrating how dumb people can be, right? Like, all you have to do is look up the story. If you read the story, it says 250 years of the Army. That's literally what it says. And they were there before Trump got there. Trump showed up later. It's embarrassing, but this is the state of wrestling media. And look, people gave this man money, right? This is one of those guys who was running a paid Discord. He runs a paid Patreon. And this is the kind of information that he's giving you. If I was a different kind of person, I would make it my goddamn life's mission to tear down everybody who has a Patreon or a paid Discord or something like that gives away false information. And then I would make you pay for it. I would make you pay for the corrections. But I'm not going to do that. Like, I do this mostly for fun. But if I can get a little bit of money out of it, that goes too. I'm always looking to have secondary revenue streams. But it's crazy that this guy was able to run essentially a gossip network, and people still take what he says at face value. Clearly, he was full of shit. Clearly, he was full of shit. And then he framed it in the worst way possible, that Cody was going to a Trump rally. For starters, nobody even cared that Tiffany Stratton was there because they already know she's a Trump supporter. But the fact that the Street Profits were there, oh my God. This is not it, guys. I didn't think these guys were Trump supporters. They're not Trump supporters. They were there to benefit the fucking army. Oh my. And then, of course, there's people out there for whom that little caveat doesn't even matter because they shouldn't be supporting the army because of how bad and terrible the army is, right? This is pretty nuts. You said at least the Wrestling Observer newsletter at the start has some leeway from the 80s. Yeah, because nobody could disprove the shit they were saying. Like, nobody was really doing too much digging into what was going on Wrestling Observer newsletter in the 80s and in the 90s. Like, it wasn't until, like, the modern internet where people can look things up and started saying for themselves that Meltzer is, half-cocked. At best, he's half-cocked. Gozu says, damn, I feel sorry for Montez. He was there to support his fellow brothers and sisters in force, only be pulling into this political mess. Yeah, he didn't even ask for this shit. Like, he just did what he felt was right. And I'm pretty sure these people might have volunteered to go. And that became another talking point, that they were all forced to go. They didn't have a choice because of WWE. Oh, they got forced to go. I'm like, I don't know. WWE cannot force people to do voluntary work. They can't force people to do that. But these people are the champions and the top guys on Smackdown, which is on nationwide television. So it's probably for the best to serve some kind of emissary there. And I'm pretty sure they, volunteered to go. I mean, they had no problem to go. WWE does stuff with the troops all the time, tribute to the troops every year except for the last year or two. They still do stuff with the USO. They no longer run Army commercials, which thank God for that. I was not comfortable with WWE running Army commercials, recruitment commercials. I wasn't a fan. Just like I wasn't a fan of the Saudi shit. Like, as long as you stop running ads for people, okay, good. I don't care what else you do. But it seems silly to me to turn this whole thing into a political fight and argument when it wasn't necessary. Ibu is the wrestling media lolcow. Yeah, and that was his boy. Is a straight up moron, bro. I feel bad. I mean, but there's a lot of suckers out there. You said also for toys and video packages for the wrestlers who wrestle in AEW. Have they released new toys? I don't think they've even had any new toys for Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor has virtually no motion, man. There's like literally nothing going on. All right, let's wrap it. Let's go into our last story. Brody King put out a statement about illegal immigration. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about the riots. I really don't. But they look like they're going to force me into it. So Brody King, using his real name, but on his Instagram, says, "Let me be clear. What's happening in Los Angeles right now is not only morally reprehensible, it's legally indefensible. This is a sanctuary city, a designation that was democratically voted on and enacted into law by the residents of this city, not by the political opportunists grandstanding from a golf course in Florida. Unfortunately, Brody King does not know American law, because if he does, he would know that the states and the cities have no jurisdiction over immigration law. And the idea of states' rights died with the Civil War. So you no longer have federalism. You no longer have 50 states with 50 different ways of doing things, which would include abortion and gay marriage and stuff like that too, right? All these contentious issues that the left has forced it upon everybody for the last 30 years, right? You don't have that anymore. You don't have the right of the state of California or the city of Los Angeles to make their own rules that, of course, affect everybody else. Because part of the problem with this illegal immigration thing isn't just that people don't like illegal immigrants because we are xenophobic. Is that most people see the politically, the economic, and the socioeconomic issues that comes with absorbing large numbers of people. I said in a previous video, I don't care about legal immigration, except those people do not stay where they immigrated to. If you could build a wall around California and none of those people can escape, I don't care. But even if they did that, there's still great political advantages to be had in the state of California by bringing in illegal immigrants. One, if you get them to vote, you get them to vote for you. Two, is it has incredible population change. Incredible population change. I got into it with a guy on Twitter recently because he was talking about black people should join the riots. He was saying that black people should be against ICE and black people should be against the LAPD because of more racism and all that. And I said, you have not been paying attention to what happens in Los Angeles. Whenever the Latinos get a majority in Los Angeles, they get super fucking racist. They get racist real quick. And it started out in the jails. Once there started being more Latino gangs in the jails, they would beat black men up in those jails. And then the Azusa 13, this was like 2010, 2011, they were running black people out of their homes. Like they were real life ethnically cleansing neighborhoods. And then like a year or two ago, a city councilman, who was a female, by the way, went on a racist rant about how one of her rivals or whatever was with the blacks and was using racial slurs. There's tons of black people who complain about how racist the Latinos are in California, whether it's in hiring, promotions, getting jobs in the first place, whole 9 yards. So even if I was to say illegal immigration, who really cares? You have to look at the real world outcomes of illegal immigration. Then you talk about the tertiary issues. If they're allowed to count illegal immigrants as part of their population, then they get greater political representation in Congress. That's what this is all about anyway, though. Because remember, people like AOC constantly say, people vote, not land. So they'll fill up these cities with illegal immigrants, count them as citizens, even though they're not citizens, for the purposes of trying to get more tax money and getting to send another representative to Congress. And then we go back to the citizenry, because as these areas become more and more Latino, they become more and more bilingual. And fewer black people speak English, let alone Spanish. So how are they going to operate in the workforce if you have to be bilingual to work in these places? On top of the competition in the workplace for guys who want to work under the table and not get paid a minimum wage. You know, all these Mexicans who are willing to live 5, 6 families in one house or whatever. There's a lot of different stuff going on here. They're not playing by the same rules. And then we can finally talk about the welfare system. Oh, but they pay taxes through sales tax and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, sure they do. They don't pay income taxes. A lot of them get paid under the table. I think that illegal immigration should be simple. You want to stay in the United States? Okay, fine. Here's what you do. Sign up to the military. Go into the military. Go be in the military. Go work in the police. Go work in the ambulances. Do it for 10 years, you can stay. That's my rule. You want to come here illegally? Sign up to be in the military for 10 years. At the end of your stay, whether you can speak English or not, you're welcome to stay. Work for it. Be willing to put something on the line for it. Don't just cross over the border and think that's good enough. No. I can figure out something for you to do. If all of those people who say they want to be American citizens, and if they're of age, of course, signed up to the military, I will say, okay, your dad's in the military. I don't have no problem with your son going to the public school. I don't have no problem with, even though I don't really like the welfare thing, it already exists. I don't have no problem with that. I don't have no problem with you getting a driver's license. But you just want to come over here and do fuck all nothing and not benefit the country at all? No, you can't do that. Not gonna let that one happen, brother. No. Nope. Not doing that. So this idiot already started off on the wrong foot by saying this was democratically voted on. Who cares what they voted on in Los Angeles? They don't have the jurisdiction to do that. They can't vote to do that. He said, let's be clear. Being undocumented in the United States is not a criminal offense. It is a civil violation. That means it holds the same legal weight as running a stop sign on a bicycle. What? What? Okay. Setting off a firework after a drink or selling unlicensed fan merch on Etsy. It is the subject to civil penalties, typically a fine, not imprisonment, not detention, and certainly not extraditional abduction. Here's the thing. How are you going to break the law and then expect people to follow the law after you've broken it? That's that kind of suicidal ridiculousness that, the left wing comes up with. We can break all the laws we want, but you are expected to follow the law. Get fucked. Get thrown out of the country. All right. And as a matter of fact, I think there's a solid argument to be made that if you don't want to get detained, you should leave. They don't have to detain you. But they detain people because the people don't want to leave. Oh, you crossed our border illegally. Here, pay a fine. Are you crazy? They're not going to pay the fine. Then what? What happens when you don't pay the fine? Whenever somebody says that something is a fine, what that means is it's illegal for poor people to do. So if you're rich and you're an illegal immigrant, you can just pay the fine and go on about your day. But if you're one of these poor day laborers who cross the border who can barely speak English, you get slapped with like a $20,000 fine or some nonsense like that. Brother, you're going to be in the hole for pretty much the rest of your life. No, we're not turning these people into slaves. Just get them out of here. And that's the thing. I think that these people, they like the idea of having modern day slaves. And I hate to go that far, but I think some of them do. Who's going to be the dishwasher? Who's going to mow the lawns? It's like this motherfucker didn't cross the border to mow your lawn forever. That's a startup job. He really wants to go do something else, I would imagine. So he can leave his ass out of this country and come over here the right way and start off right. Because there's tons of people doing it. And yes, it's hard. And yes, it's difficult. That's why I say, if you're an illegal immigrant, you should just sign up for the military. And go to boot camp. You'll learn the Constitution. You'll learn the respect of authority. You'll learn how the government works. You'll learn pretty much all about what it means to be an American in the military. And once you come out, I don't care how you vote. I don't care what you do. You will have earned it. We should draft illegal immigrants. That's what we should do. That's what Trump really should do. Instead of sending ICE out there or, the National Guard, he should say, we're going to draft illegal immigrants. Every fucking illegal we catch, we're sending them over to Israel so they can fight the Iranians. I'm kidding, of course. But that's also why it's never going to happen. It's a bunch of people who want to give away things for free, and they want to give it away for free because they're going to get something on the back end. So he says, dragging someone off the street at gunpoint without a warrant or a due process and forcing them into an unmarked vehicle operated by armed plainclothes agents is not law enforcement. It is armed kidnapping. And armed kidnapping is a felony, a real one. For starters, this story about people being snatched off the street is all bullshit. All right? These guys are running from ICE agents. Of course, they're going to show up in plain clothes. This shit happens all the time. Dope boys get snatched off the street the exact same way by plainclothes police officers. Once you get snatched, that's when they tell you who they are. They have to when they're arresting you. They got to show you a badge and all of that. So it's definitely going to happen. The idea that you're being disappeared into the middle of the night, that's all left-wing bullshit. You're an illegal immigrant. You're engaging in crime. You're trying to hide from these people. So they're coming to look for you, especially if they're looking for felonies, people who has felonies. They're coming for you. They could walk around with ICE tattooed on their forehead and you can just run forever. Or you can walk past a guy at the bodega and not know who he is, and then he grab you by the back of your neck and throw you on the hood of the car. Because that's probably how it happens to drug dealers. That's how it used to happen to mob bosses. It's capos from the fucking mafia used to get snatched off the street. This ain't some out of the ordinary stuff here. This is pretty regular. When people are trying to hide from you, you hide from them. Camouflage yourself into their surroundings, and then you grab them when you can. There's nothing out of the ordinary about that. And then once you're under arrest, they have to read you your rights. And they have to identify themselves. So at that point, the idea of them being plain clothes and armed and all that sort of stuff is irrelevant. Unless you want to tell me that it could be possibly misconstrued that they are who might be ICE agents. They might be gangsters. They might be illegals. This is pretty ridiculous, man. So he says, so if we're going to obsess over who is illegal, start by looking at the heavily armed individuals violating constitutional protections under the guise of enforcing the law. Because what they're doing is criminal, not the people they're targeting. Yes, it's really the bad guys who when you're given a warning to get out of the country, you're breaking the law, get out of here, and you decide, I can do whatever I want. Then at that point, the people enforcing the law are the bad guys. You should be able to do whatever you want. See, that's the general liberal mindset. There is no boundaries. We decide what laws are important and which ones aren't. This is how he's talking about it here. Oh, it's a civil violation. It's not that big of a deal. How about all these people that have been murdered by illegal immigrants? How about all these illegal immigrant gangbangers that come into this country? Cartel leaders and shit. They're taking over hotels in Colorado and stuff. What's all this about? We're just going to ignore all of that because you've seen some pauchy Mima on TV crying in Spanish. All of a sudden, that's everybody. No, there's motherfuckers running around here with teardrop tattoos and all kind of crazy shit tattooed on their neck. Get them out of here, man. Get them out of here. They can beat it. And, you know, and I hate to be that way because generally speaking, I don't care about illegal immigration. You know, I don't think it's that big a deal to go from one place to another. I really don't. But when you do so in such large numbers, and when you're doing so with this stupid revolutionary reconquista, this used to be our land anyway. Get this motherfucker up out of here, man. Like, get out of here. It's like I can recognize, even appreciate that people want to be Americans and they want to come over here. They want to come over here and work. I don't even care if you want to treat the United States like an economic zone. You just want to come here, work, and send money back home. I don't care. What I care about is the attitude of the people who are actually helping them. Because there's an entire industry around illegal immigration. That's why it's so much of it. There's illegal immigration lawyers, illegal immigration judges. There's NGOs all over the place for the sole purpose of helping the illegals. That soaks up a lot of taxpayer money. It soaks up a lot of church resources, local resources, and it's depriving the actual citizens of that area. On top of making it harder for them to live, on top of increasing the crime and the competition in the workforce. But generally speaking, if one person, you know, that's why I think I think driver's licenses are stupid. If you can drive in Texas, why do you need a different driver's license in Arkansas? That's just stupid to me. It's the same thing with a gun license. I think those things are stupid. They don't make sense. It's just another way for states to make money. But there's not a whole lot of people, you know, that's going to make a difference when it comes to driver's licenses. This is a big deal because there's millions and millions and millions of people flooding into Arizona and California and Texas and New York, taking over these areas and engaging in ungodly behaviors. This has to stop. It has to stop. It's unrealistic to think that this is going to go on forever. It's just not going to be able to go on forever. And it's dumb. He's a dumb fucking wrestler. And the thing is, a lot of these people, and because you see this with liberals all the time, they believe, and this is the number one thing you need to realize when you're talking to liberals. The liberals believe that if you are a true believer, you don't quibble over tactics. This has been the biggest issue between liberals and conservatives, right? Liberals believe there is no truth but power. Conservatives are weak. Typically, they don't even like using power, which is why Trump seems like an authoritarian because he's actually willing to use power. Most conservatives have no interest in using power, which is how the illegal immigration issue keeps getting so bad. Because every conservative is being, Superman with, they're living around like they're Clark Kent. They're trying to turn the knobs without breaking the knob off. Trump is willing to kick the fucking door down. That's why people like him. He's willing to say, I'm Superman, while dressed like Clark Kent, right? Well, I think I'm Superman. He's going to go and do whatever he wants. He's going to do Superman shit. Meanwhile, you give this same power to some other conservative or whatever. Well, Donald Trump not even a conservative. That's probably why he's, has no problem utilizing power. But if you give it to a true conservative, they'd be like, I don't know about all of this authority I got here. Maybe I shouldn't do this. The left will lie to you to further their agenda. They will subvert you there is nothing that they won't do, and there's nothing that they're willing to criticize. This is why when they set shit on fire, they will literally look you right at TV and say, it's peaceful, nothing's happening. Because you're not allowed to question tactics. So if you're defacing murals, burning shit, looting, and the crazy thing is, these people, and I'm not even just talking about the illegals because it's not them. A lot of it is these paid protesters, these Antifa type people. They're destroying middle class businesses, and they're doing it on purpose. Like they're targeting those people on purpose, because those are the people who are the petite bourgeoisie. They hate them more than they hate the rich. It's simple Marxism. The reason why Marxism has not been able to take real root in the United States is because we had a thriving middle class. You weren't rich, you weren't fabulously wealthy, but you weren't dirt fucking poor either. You were comfortable. You lived well. But after every riot, all the destruction of property, people's quality of life goes down. It's inevitable. It happens nobody has ever had a riot and then the quality of life goes up. It always goes down. That's what they want. Because so then they can start talking about the wealth disparities in these areas. Look at the disparities of wealth here. The rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. Well, you're going into their neighborhoods and burning up shit, blowing up shit, looting people and putting them out of business. Of course they're getting fucking poorer. What do you think is going to happen? Their kids can't fucking read because you've taken over the schools and now 60% of the fucking kids can't read. Look at the wealth disparities. Yeah, look at them. You fucking caused it. This is what Marxists want. They want a large swath of poor people so that they can turn these people into an army and overthrow the elites. This is the idea. But you have to create that army. And you create that army by, one, all this intersectional bullshit, the gays, the straights, the allies, the blacks, all of them. You create all those lanes, and then you create the poor. There are certain people out there who would not be poor if it wasn't for some riot, some looting, some inequitable justice system that's taking place over there that's allowing these people to do all this shit. People who are being kicked out of their homes. You know, you got NGOs propping up the illegals. Meanwhile, everybody else's life is in flux. Look at the wealth disparity. So yeah, how about you created them? You created the wealth disparity. If you created it through rioting and destroying their property, you either created it by allowing rampant crime in these neighborhoods, whether it's gang crime, whether it's crack dealing, whether it's pimping and hoeing or whatever thing you just allowed to happen in these neighborhoods. There's so many different things that if you actually sat down and thought about it, the outcome of this is to destroy the stability of people's lives. That's why they want to put homeless shelters in the same neighborhoods where people own homes, to bring your property values down, to make you fucking poor. Why else would they want to make you poor? So that they can go on TV and talk about wealth disparities, and then you'll feel like you're getting screwed. Well, yeah, I guess I am getting screwed by big bad Amazon, so maybe I'll join this Marxist revolution. Without knowing that the reason why you can't find a job is because these assholes 10 years ago burned down a neighborhood, torched everything, places for you to work vanished. They looted them, burned them to the ground. And nobody's going to come in and fix this shit. Because now all the insurance costs have gone up. Look at the wealth disparities. There's the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. Yeah, and this is all your fault. You keep voting for this bullshit. It's not fair, man. And most people do not. That's another thing that sucks about conservatives is they don't go on TV and talk about this. I guarantee you, in a few years, you're going to be hearing about wealth disparities in LA and how problematic it is. And I'm going to say, well, you let the Crips run wild for 20 some odd years and sell crack all in those neighborhoods, and then you locked all of them up, and then you locked away some people who weren't even all that bad under your 3 strikes laws, and then you start letting them all out, and now you just let out whoever. So now people are just going back to the hood and killing people, driving the property values down, and then you flooded it with illegal immigrants. And cause all kinds of housing issues, work issues, political issues, social issues, all sorts of stuff. Property values went down. And then Trump tried to deport the illegals, and you caused a riot, which, of course, led to more looting, more destruction of property. Business insurance goes up. Car insurance goes up because people are still in cars, of course. All the costs to run in that neighborhood goes up. Property values go down. Everybody's poor. Look at the wealth disparities. Yeah, look at them. That's why you have to be immune to this shit. You have to be immune to the wealth disparity argument. They're creating the wealth disparities. They want the wealth disparities. Just like they want the racism. Just like they want the sexism. They want this stuff. They claim they don't want it, but they're doing everything possible to create more of it. Because it's a win-win for them. The liberals win either way. Another one that Christopher Rufo was talking about was Lockheed Martin. There's a black woman in human resources, right? She's literally putting in email, putting it in paper that they have to get rid of white workers and replace them with black ones or people of color or whatever. This is in black and white. She knows they're going to get sued. She doesn't care. Why should she care? It's not her money. If Lockheed Martin gets sued for $300 million, she's not going to lose not one fucking penny. She might get fired, but that's it. She wins anyway. Because either she probably hates Lockheed Martin in the first place because she's a liberal and Lockheed Martin is a defense contractor. So she probably hates them anyway. So she's setting them up to get sued. And it's not going to hurt her or harm her in any way. That's how these people think. If I hurt you, good. If I wound you, great. If I kill you, that's the best option. Stop giving me this bullshit about the illegal immigrants. They're not doing anything wrong. Yeah, we figured that much out. But now let's talk about how they're counting them on the census, which of course is robbing states like Colorado and Wyoming and South Dakota of political authority in their own country. You're diluting your voter base. The people who were born there, who pay income taxes there, who own homes there, they're having their votes diluted because you can just show up and vote without even living in that neighborhood. You're not even a resident. Oh, we can't ask for ID to vote, but you need to have a vaccine card. Get fucked. WG Phil says business has insurance. Does the work do the workers do? They think the job going to reimburse the workers once the store gets destroyed, or once the workers get hurt and while the looting is going on. Because during the purge, it's an absolutely awesome time to get revenge on somebody. If you are looting a store, why not punch somebody in the face? Why not jump somebody and beat them up? See, people are only looking for, well, who was killed? That's not it. Not just about who was killed. There's people getting beat up out there. People being maced. They having, fireworks thrown at them. There's all sorts of stuff happening to people out there. And there's a bunch of shit happening you ain't going to hear about. Just like there was rapes going on in the Chaz Chop area in Oregon. Just like there was rapes at the what was that thing in New York? Was it We Are the 99%? Occupy Wall Street. There were rapes going on there too. There was more likely rapes going to be. There was rapes in Hurricane Katrina. Oh, they were shooting looters. So what? That's the one thing, is somebody was trying to protect their property. All the other crimes of Katrina you didn't hear about. All the people who were murdered. Not killed because the water got too high, but fucking shot. Not for looting either, but because it's a good time to act on your gang violence or to get back at this ex-girlfriend or whatever the case. Creating chaos opens up so many opportunities for people to get away with bullshit. It's insane. It's insane. Thoughts on Gavin Newsom? Well, it's clear that he wants to be president. I think he's too soft to be president. I think he works for California and all the liberal areas, but I don't think he works on a national stage. I don't think he's particularly smart. He's spineless, and that's something that's the one thing I can say is, at least right now, the national stage is no place for the Tim Walz, Gavin Newsom, male Democrat. They're too spineless. They're too weak. They have no backbone. They have no soul. They're all controlled by the masses. Masculinity is whatever the masses say it is today. If they have to tap dance, in a tutu in order to get an election, they'll do it. Whatever it takes. They have no standards, no principles, no nothing, no values, no nothing. That stuff does not work in a lot of conservative areas. But it works in California because all you got to do is win the big cities. It works in Minnesota because all you got to do is win the big cities. It works in Chicago because all you got to do is win the big city. It works in Michigan because all you got to do is win the big city. On the national stage, it's different. And again, this is how the left set up the country, because they've been the cultural dominant for 60 years. All they've done is overload the cities and basically just win the city. Because the cities where the most populations are. And those are the bluest areas in every fucking map, in every fucking state. It's the same damn thing. Your heavily populated areas are Democrat. And if you get enough of those people in those areas, you can win the election just by winning those cities. This is why they need to have statewide what's the word I'm looking for? Electoral college. It needs to be statewide electoral college. That's why they hate it. They hate the electoral college because it's been the one thing holding them back from supreme power. Because if there was no electoral college, the Democrats would always win because they have California, New York, parts of Texas, and Chicago and Atlanta. They'd win. If it was a pure democracy, about 10 counties in the entire country would run the entire country. That'd be the top 10 counties in the country will run the country. So if you were from like Idaho or something like that, you wouldn't have any not even a hope of representation. then America would be as bad as England or France or something like that at that point. But we haven't gotten there yet because of the Electoral College. They need to do it at the state level. Because population decreasing, population leaving is not changing anything. Because the population that's leaving places like California are just going to Colorado and turning that fucking place blue. They're just going to Texas and turning that shit blue. So it's not helping. It's not benefiting at all. It needs to break the back of this thing. And the only way to break the back of it is not on a national stage do anything. It needs to be broken at the state level. So that the people who are farthest away from the big cities have representation in their government. Because there's people in California who live in the middle of nowhere, far away from these big cities. That why even vote? You're not going to win. Why even vote? You have no chance. If you're a Republican, why even run? You don't have no chance. So that's part of the problem. But you have to run to win, which means you're probably going to end up with a very liberal Republican, which means he's going to be skittish about using power, and he ain't going to fix the problem. So there's that. He said, where's Brody King's sympathy for the black woman who got murdered by one of these illegal immigrants? Or his sympathy for all the people who had to live under the tyranny of illegal immigrants running a hotel or an apartment building in Colorado? I felt bad for those people too. Africans, Asians, and Europeans go through the citizenship process legally. What's stopping them who are just at the border, our neighbors, becoming legalized citizens? The fact that the left has been telling them for a long time that they don't have to. That's been the problem. They've been telling them they don't have to. You said Gen Z is completely cooked before they even had a chance. Yeah. And you hear it all the time though. Like somebody recently just said, all these things that his grandfather didn't have to do for his grandma, like pay for her pedicures and manicures and her weave and all this sort of stuff. All that shit came within the last 20 or 30 years. I never heard my grandma or my mama even talk about that. Like my daddy is responsible for getting her hair done and getting her feet done and getting her hands done. That's a completely new cultural element, right? Like that's part of the problem here is how the culture has changed. That stuff is expected now. But the biggest deal, of course, is they not being able to get houses. They can't afford a home. And part of that is because of how the boomers and all these people set up the housing market. They have prevented new houses from being built, which is, that's a zoning issue. It's usually a statewide issue. They're keeping the houses expensive. And now you got the liberals, they don't want to build single family houses. They want to build apartments, quote unquote. Basically, they want to build more projects. The projects was an idea of the left, though, by the way. I was listening to Bobby Womack earlier across 110th Street, right? And when you read books, like I finished that James Cone book, and one of the things that you learn is a lot of the 70s and 80s was about how much people hated living in the ghetto, how terrible the ghetto was. Like the ghetto was like, people hated the ghetto, right? Like the blaxploitation movies showed how bad the ghetto was. Look at the pimping and the drug dealers, and look at how terrible the hood is in the ghetto. That switched in the 90s, right? Then the ghetto became like the place to be. But in the 70s and 80s or whatever, the ghetto was terrible. Nobody wanted to be in the ghetto. But they marched for the ghettos in the 50s and 60s. They wanted more public housing. They wanted this shit. This is the thing about the left. They wanted public housing. Remember, they also said, this is the left, that it was racist that the governments were not doing anything about drug dealers. Oh, you're just neglecting our neighborhoods because we're black. There's so many murders here. There's so much blah, 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 blah here. And then 10 years later, they're complaining about over-policing. It wasn't that long ago that they claimed, oh, we need to have body cams on all the police officers. And then the body cam started to show up. Then it's, we live in a police state. Like we're under constant surveillance all the time. Like, you don't want to ask for this. And this is why, the conservatives are so fucking stupid, because some of these ideas are legitimately good ideas, like the body cam. Some places are actually backing off, like Chicago, right? They're backing off of some of the technology that would allow them to keep track of crime, because they're like, oh, these neighborhoods are over policed. Oh, this is not really helping, even though these places tell you exactly where crimes are happening in the city. Why would you not want to know that if you're working in the government? Well, you don't want to know that if you don't care. And why would you not care? Because you want those people to be poor, right? You want them to be unsafe. You want them to be poor. You want them to come out of that situation complaining about living in that situation and saying nobody else deserves to live that way. It was terrible. I'm going to support all the left-wing causes because some left-wing teacher told me this is all the fault of rich Amazon man. What? That's how it works. The fucking government ruins everything. And then they tell you, 'cause I grew up with that. Well, if only Chrysler and GM paid more in taxes, then all you poor kids from Detroit would have so much better facilities. You'd have much better playgrounds if only the Ford family paid more in taxes. And you grow up believing that bullshit. It ain't got nothing to do with the fucking Ford family. It got everything to do with the state of Michigan squandering our fucking money again and again on bullshit boondoggles. Whether it's light speed rails that don't go anywhere, whether it's education for illegal immigrants, whether it's bullshit for the homeless, whether it's bullshit for drug addicts, whether it's kickbacks to NGOs that put people in certain positions. All this stuff is a big web of bullshit. The thing is, they want you poor. Once you realize, and again, just pick your favorite Marxist organization or whatever and follow out how they got their following. An intellectual elite went to the quote unquote dispossessed, radicalized them, and got them to join up. This is exactly what happened to Black Panthers. Huey Newton did not go to other well-to-do middle-class kids and flip them. He went to the hood, to the gangbangers, the motherfuckers straight out of prison, flipped them. Now he's got an army. He can do whatever he wants. And he's going to use that muscle to enforce himself on everybody else. And that's exactly what they're doing now. These illegals are poor. So they're fodder. You go in there and this guy's a fucking day laborer. He's a goddamn carpenter or something like that. He's no threat to anybody. But if you radicalize some of these people through these programs, through these NGOs, you can get them out in the street. And if you get enough of them out in the street, you can hide those crazy Antifa people among them, and they could start throwing bricks, setting off fireworks, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But you got to get the people in the street first. How do you get them in the street? You start proselytizing. Street preaching. Oh, they're going to, yeah, I know that you broke the law, but you deserve to break the law. There's nothing wrong with what you did. It's only wrong because they said it was wrong. They don't believe in standards. They don't believe in the fucking law. Why should they care? They'll lie to you as soon as look at you. Is there thoughts on the Latinos for Trump starting to regret their decisions? I don't know if they are. I think most people kind of figured it was going to come to this. I think a lot of people who are pretty prophetic in the idea that there was going to be immigration riots. There's always riots. Whenever a Republican's in power, there's always riots. We should know that by now. Oh, you got a Republican governor or there's a Republican president or something like that, there's going to be riots. That's how they operate. They start setting up these national day of rebellions and all this bullshit, and there's going to be riots. And then once you try to quell the riot, you're an authoritarian. So either you allow things to be destroyed and people's lives to be ruined, people to get raped and murdered and looted and all this sort of stuff. Either you neglect the population and you let it happen, or you're an authoritarian if you go in there and try to break it up. You lose either way. That's what I just said, right? You lose either way. Either you don't really care about us. Why did we vote for you? Because we needed you to do something and you didn't do it. Or I voted for you. I didn't think you were going to go this far. Either way, they win. That's why you have to steel your stomach over shit like this. You can't be squeamish and say, "Oh, I wanted to vote for the deportation of the illegal immigrants. This is what we voted for," and then think that it was going to be nice. This wasn't going to be nice. It was always going to look like this. It was always going to look like this. It's going to get worse. Because if it actually works, you have to realize what the benefit of this is. This has benefited California tremendously politically at the state level. In terms of their NGOs and all that sort of stuff, this has been a billion dollar industry, these illegal immigrants. If they was just clean California completely out of illegal immigrants, hundreds of people will lose their jobs. Hundreds. It's the same thing with the Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights laws. You should be like, why can't we just get rid of the Civil Rights Act? Do you know how many people will lose their job if we got rid of the Civil Rights Act? Hundreds of thousands across every state in the union. They have built, and this is the thing that the left does, they build an entire industry around these things that they enforce upon you. Abortion, gay marriage, illegal immigration, drug addicts, the homeless. They have built entire structures around these things. So even if you're not for it, you probably are in some way tangentially tied into it. I told you it's a web, and it is. There's no way to escape it. So there's probably people out there who are against the deportation of illegal immigrants because, fuck, they might lose a whole lot if the immigrants get deported. You might have to actually go get a real job. You know, I went to college for immigration law, and now they got rid of all the illegals. So what am I going to do? You need illegals to go learn immigration law, right? They don't care. It's all this stuff is self-serving. I think that Trump is probably using too much force. I will say that. When you see tanks in the street, you're probably going too far. But I don't have a problem with the job raids. Him going into different shops, and I think he should just arrest the people who hired him too. If you do enough of that, those people will fire the illegals themselves. You arrest a couple of people for aiding and abetting, even if they don't go get any real time for it, hit them with like a RICO charge, like sex trafficking or something like that. Or I would probably call it slavery, personally. Because if he's coming in here and he's working for below minimum wage or something like that, we have a minimum wage law for a reason. Even though I don't like the minimum wage law, I would rather get rid of it. And illegal immigration probably wouldn't be so bad if we didn't have a minimum wage. It probably wouldn't hurt so badly the economies of these areas. But we got it. There's no two ways about it. So I would probably smack him with like a human trafficking charge. If you're soliciting people to come across the border to go to work for below standard labor costs, it's got to be like human trafficking. That's what I would do. Hit them with like a RICO or something like that. Even if it's just, you overcharging people, you do enough of that shit, people will change their behavior. That's why they're doing this shit with Diddy and all, in Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby and all them. They want to change people's behaviors. They don't care if they really don't get a lot of time. The point isn't to take down one person. The point is always to take down the system. The left does not care about individuals. They have never cared about an individual. The individual do not matter. They care about the collective. So everything they do is about affecting the collective. So you think that they just want to destroy Diddy. No. They want to destroy everybody that's like Diddy. Rich men with kinks. You got to go. And I'm pretty sure that when he's gone, they're going to replace him with a black woman. Probably a gay black woman. A gay black woman with blind in one eye. But I don't think anybody is going to be too concerned about Latinos for Trump. I mean, if you're squeamish about it, why did you even vote? All right. Thanks for talking to you guys. I'll talk to you guys later. Unless something pops up, I'll be seeing you guys again on Monday. Peace out.